Have you ever noticed this strange paradox in music? Two notes that are only a semitone apart on paper, like the first and the seventh degree of the scale, can actually feel worlds apart in sensation. Meanwhile, notes that are much farther apart, like a fifth or an octave away, feel extremely consonant. That's because the distance in semitones between notes doesn't match the distance we feel in terms of musical sensations. In fact, it's almost the opposite. The smaller the distance in semitones, the greater the difference in sensation. Behind this small detail lies the reason why most musicians get interval ear training completely wrong. They focus on measuring distances instead of hearing sensations. And if you're wondering which camp you fall into, chances are it's the first one, unless you're applying the exact thought process I'm about to reveal. This is the same thought process that we teach in our science-based method, and has helped thousands of musicians, from beginners to professionals, develop an intuitive musical ear. It's rated excellent on Trustpilot and is used in top universities worldwide. Before we dive in, don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss our upcoming videos. Musicians are typically taught to identify intervals by perceiving the distance between two notes. But here's the problem. When you listen to music, your brain can't process it as distances between notes. It only hears the sensations those notes create within the key of the song. Take the seventh degree, for example. On paper, it's only one semitone below the tonic. But in feeling, it's the most unstable note of the entire scale. It desperately wants to resolve on one. It feels farther away from home than almost any other note, even though, in terms of distance, it's the closest one. Something similar applies also to the third and the fourth degree. They're just a semitone apart, but the third feels stable, while the fourth feels suspended, unfinished, almost like it's hanging in midair. This paradox is why intervallic distances can't explain what our brain actually perceives. So what's the alternative? Instead of thinking in terms of distances, think in terms of scale degrees, the role each note plays inside the key. But how do you actually apply that to recognizing intervals? That's simple. After hearing an interval, don't isolate it. Forget about popular melody references and stop trying to measure the distance. Instead, frame it inside a tonality. For example, if you hear two notes, imagine the lowest note as the tonic. Sing the scale starting from it. By doing that, you can identify if the remaining note is the third degree, fifth degree, seventh, or any other scale degree. And if it doesn't line up exactly with the scale you just sang, you can still pinpoint it instantly, because it can only be a semitone above or below one of those degrees you've already anchored. This works because our perception of pitch is tonal. Every note we hear automatically takes on a role, a function, within the key we are perceiving internally. And here's the kicker. Once you internalize the 7 scale degrees plus the 5 non-diatonic notes, you no longer need to calculate intervals at all. You'll just feel them, like you instinctively know red is red and blue is blue. But this will never happen unless you learn to establish a scale clearly in your inner perception. That's why framing every interval within a scale is absolutely essential. And that's not the only essential step. There is another one, singing. At the beginning especially, you need to sing the scale. Why? Because singing forces you to stabilize the key in your mind. It locks the tonality in place, so every interval you hear carries a consistent feeling instead of constantly shifting. This is critical. Without singing, your mind drifts, the key keeps changing in the background of your thinking, and most musicians aren't even aware this is happening at first. When training with our method, they start being clearly aware of the key they are perceiving internally after a couple of months. The problem is that if your internal key shifts, the same interval starts feeling like something else entirely. That's why so many musicians get lost. The upside of this step, what we could call perceived key awareness or context recognition, is that once you develop it, your ear levels up across the board, including your ability to recognize intervals. If you consistently apply the thought process I shared earlier, you'll notice your mind will begin to naturally frame certain intervals within the right context immediately. For instance, intervals like the minor third or minor sixth will immediately connect to a minor scale in your mind, and you'll naturally sing a minor scale in these cases, making interval recognition faster and easier. The The same happens with major intervals, like the major third or major sixth, which your ear will instinctively place within a major scale. So, being aware of your internal key perception is a real superpower. It instantly narrows the possibilities to only the notes that make sense within the musical context you're perceiving. At first, this process may feel a bit slow, but with practice, it becomes second nature. Eventually, you'll hear a note and immediately feel its identity in the scale. No calculation required. You might be wondering, why does this matter? Why worry about how we think when we practice intervals? Isn't that overkill? Ear training is a mental skill. There's no bowing technique or finger strength to bail you out, only your thinking. Your thought process is everything. Where you place your attention during a drill can make it powerful or pointless. I learned this the hard way. 10 years of interval practice with 0 results, and we've seen the same pattern with thousands of students. Some could ace interval apps, yet couldn't recognize the simplest melodies by ear.
I ordered an ear training course by a guy called David Lucas Burge, and I thought it would help. It's like, here's the interval, identify it. And it would be like flipping intervals and changing, and it's that fast. And I could do all of that. Chord qualities, all that stuff. And I got really, really good at it. At the end of that course, you have to transcribe the Star Spangled Banner, the anthem. And I couldn't do it. I mean, I was obviously frustrated because I knew how good I'd gotten at that. Like, I was really good.
Their interval practice didn't transfer to real music at all. A tiny minority, the lucky 3% who naturally think the right way, can make interval drills work for them. But if you're like the other 97% of us, the fix is simple. Learn to practice the right way and adopt the exact thought process for each ear training task. And that's why in our ear training method, we don't use interval drills at all. Instead, it's about adopting the right thought process and using exercises that actually develop it. That's what makes recognizing melodies and chord progressions feel natural. That's what makes improvisation flow more freely. And that's even what makes singing click for people who once thought they could never sing. We've seen this transformation again and again with thousands of musicians. Some went from failing exams to nearly perfect scores in just weeks. Others finally joined the tribe of musicians who can confidently pick up songs by ear, create instantly, and feel at home in any musical situation. If you want to experience that same breakthrough, check out our free workshop. In it, we'll guide you step by step through the exact method that's helped thousands of musicians, showing you the right order of skills to develop, the exact thought process to adopt in each exercise, which exercises to practice and which to avoid at your current level, and everything you need to build an ear that works in real music, not just exercises. Click the link in the description below, register for free, and start building the kind of ear that actually makes music feel effortless. And if you're not ready for the workshop yet, check out this other video where I show you the best exercise and thinking strategy to recognize chords by ear instantly.